Hello and good evening, I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
Welcome to Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. We begin the show with a look at unemployment. Now, according to the Department of Statistics, Malaysia's unemployment rate for April is now at 5%. This is the highest it's been in the last 30 years since 1990. However, some economists are warning that the worst is yet to come, especially might be reflected in the numbers of the second quarter. Some are predicting that unemployment will be at 6 or 7% in the coming months, and whether or not the rate will stabilize will depend on the domestic and global economic recovery.
Well, it's very interesting because, we've been focused on numbers, and the numbers that have been driving much of the news agenda because the COVID-19 infection rate numbers. But I think we'll be seeing a shift to the numbers. This, of course, is just one of many barometers of the health of the economy, or in fact, the lack of the health of the economy and the trouble that we might be in and need to prepare for. So I think some discussion needs to happen around exactly what these numbers capture and what they don't capture. Yeah,
I mean, you're absolutely right in terms of the government's communication has largely been focused on the, kind of controlling the pandemic, rightly so. But I'm really hoping that now there's going to be kind of daily communication, or at least very frequent communication, focused on the conversation about the health of the economy, communicating where we're at, the real situation and what's being done to kind of mitigate the fallout, the economic fallout from the pandemic.
Yeah, and because, I mean, again, we come back to those numbers you cited. What exactly isn't captured? What do we do with numbers of people who are non-citizens, for instance, that also might reflect where those sectors that have been reliant on foreign workers, whether documented or otherwise, where that sector is going. And also, I guess, the informal sector, and depending on the parts of the country we're talking about or looking at, the informal sector is extraordinarily important, and whether what's happening there, that's being captured, and whether the media is following that story.
Yeah, so just to kind of answer your question, the unemployment rate captures the number of jobless people actively looking for paid work, and that's divided by the number of people in the labour force. So there are data gaps. Right now, I think the unemployment figures do not account for the people who have withdrawn from the labour force. So meaning when individuals stop looking for jobs actively, maybe they think that there's no jobs out there, that they're discouraged. So all that is not kind of captured in the unemployment figures currently. And not to mention the time lag, between businesses kind of reporting the layoffs, the termination of staff and non-renewals of contracts, all that is also maybe not captured in the data.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We have some data that suggests a demographic trend, people under 40, so on and so forth, supplying some of the larger numbers in terms of job layoffs. I wonder if there's a gender dimension to job layoffs as well, and how that's going to affect families and those dynamics, especially in urban centers where often families require two people to work. Both the husband and the wife need to work in order to have and keep families together. Okay, so not just the barometer, unemployment rate as the barometer of the health of the economy, there also should be conversations around whether Malaysia's social protections are enough, are adequate, whether there's sufficient job creation and future planning for job creation. All those things have to be within I guess within the eye line of the government at the moment. Yeah, very interesting because we also have relied on, or there are certain what would you call them? These are home truths that Malaysians hold on to in terms of who's responsible for this, and perhaps those assumptions about what the role of the state or the role of the market need to be re-examined in a much more radical fashion. That is, of course, dependent on how deep this recession is, how long it lasts. Okay, well, in other news, we have the Communications and Multimedia Minister, Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah. He wants Finas to come up with a quote-unquote Project Oscar roadmap, which is a roadmap with the objective
of getting a Malaysian film to win an Academy Award. So Saifuddin said that it took South Korea 30 years before the film Parasite won Best Picture last year. So he reckons Malaysia might be successful within 20 to 30 years. What do you reckon, Sharaad? Is this the right target for the Malaysian film industry to win an Oscar?
It's a long timeline for an Oscar, perhaps much longer than the timeline for clean water in Kelantan, which I think is about 10 years.
2030,
I think, is what Kelantanese politicians are promising the people of Kelantan. But very interesting, Melisa, because I think sometimes the media goes for the sexiest idea that's thrown out by a politician, and because but it might seem a bit vacuous, one of those things that grabs attention but actually doesn't have any connection with reality.
Okay.
What does it mean to want an Oscar?
Well, he did point out that in sports you have kind of goal targets, right? So you have medal targets. You want to win a medal in the Olympics or the SEA Games and the like, and then you have that target. You work towards that target. So you start a plan, you start practicing, and then you kind of get there in the end. I'm wondering whether the analogy that the minister used can be applied to the film industry. Do we have a target of, say, the Oscars, and then work our way there with a plan and perhaps practice and steps and grants and incentives and the like? Yeah,
very interesting, because the reference was, in fact, the winner, the director of Parasite, whose own trajectory might be a model for what we're looking for in terms of his radical past. He was a student activist, his commitment to kind of the intellectual life, born out by, actually coming from a family that was deeply intellectual. So is that something that you can recreate? Is that dependent on what we do with our universities, the kind of politics we have? Whether
so the foundations must be right.
Absolutely. I mean, South Korea, fought for democracy so many years ago, won it, hard-won democracy, many massacres after, and was that the cauldron that created a vibrant culture that led eventually to something like the Oscars? All
right. Well, that's something for FINAS to plan, given that that is the mandate given to them by the MCMC minister. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but after this, we're going to be looking at wet markets and small traders and discussing the issues that have come up in the decision to disallow foreign worker participation. So stay tuned to consider this.
Novel coronavirus yang seolah-olah masih tiada vaksin.
Elakkan pergi ke epicenter.
Kalau boleh lah.
Kes-kes ni dapat dikesan dan dikuarantin di hospital atau
di rumah. How are you? Thanks for doing this with us.
There's a snap election. I'm still voting.
Tidak boleh dikurangkan.
Your mic is hot, and then you've got
he is my ADUN. He is my ADUN. He's done a wonderful job.
And there's video evidence.
It's a person issue.
We're coming up now.
Rancak TV ni adalah sebuah channel digital yang bernaung di bawah Astro AWANI.
Apa yang best sangat dengan Rancak TV ni?
Of course best, sebab dia ada macam-macam cerita. Dia ada cerita pasal isu-isu semasa, cerita pasal kesenian, cerita pasal hiburan, cerita pasal kecergasan, cerita pasal sukan, cerita pasal travel, cerita pasal sejarah, fakta-fakta menarik. Dan mereka juga ada buat short film dan juga dokumentari. Dan yang paling penting, Rancak TV tak kita buat.
Hi, you're watching Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, with me Sharaad Kuttan. Wet markets in Asia came in for global attention when it was thought that they could be the source of the coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic. But here in Malaysia, concerns have centered on the presence of migrant workers and also a possible site of job opportunities during the expected recession. Joining us on the line now, we have Rajiv Rishyakaran, Bukit Gasing State Assembly person. Rajiv, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight.
Hi, good evening.
Hi. Rajiv, we understand that you've launched an online job matching system to match local job seekers with positions at wet markets in PJ in Petaling Jaya some weeks ago. Now, can I ask you what that response has been so far to the program?
There's an interesting amount of people that are looking and considering working these jobs. It is not everyone, and it is definitely not for everyone. It does take quite a bit to wake up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. to go to work. But then, yes, there are people who have lost their jobs in various other industries and now are turning to this as a source of employment, maybe just for the short term.
Okay, for the short term, that's very interesting because the question is for those who are hiring them, the cost for hiring Malaysians will go up. They would have to be better paid with better conditions. They would have to have EPF and SOCSO. Presumably, many of these not paid to foreign workers currently working in wet markets. Are employers willing to pay? Are they excited as much as you are about this prospect of paying more to local workers?
They're not excited. I don't think that would be a fair thing to say about any of these traders. But I think many of them have come to accept that they have to bite the bullet and do it. And yes, they are willing to pay because life has to go on and the show must go on. And in the case of PJ, traders have indicated the willingness to pay as much as 80 ringgit to 100 ringgit a day to get good help. And this could easily amount to 2,000 ringgit or more a month for those who want to work in the market.
Rajiv, you said that they're not excited. Are they unhappy about having to hire locals?
For sure. They have been comfortably using foreign labor, which is arguably cheaper, although it comes at a lot of other hidden costs. But it gives them the ease of operating as these workers are used to the type of work.
Okay.
The problem of taking in a lot of new people is a lot of training and a lot of filtering that people give up after a week, people give up after 5 days on the job. So there'll be quite a lot of turnover in the first few weeks while people test out the market to see whether they can actually work there and survive the taxing work. It's a lot of heavy lifting, it's very physical, and it's certainly not for everyone, especially if you've been used to an office job before this.
Okay, so you said that traders may have to pay up to 2,000 ringgit in terms of wages. Now, do you think that the traders will eventually pass down this increased cost to the consumer?
I think that's just basic economics. It would be passed down in one form or the other. And this is something that we have to live with, as the government has been very clear that foreign workers will no longer be tolerated at these wet markets.
Rajiv, you talked about this being maybe a stopgap measure, for at least from the perspective of the local, the person who wants to kind of work at the wet market. Now, if we get through this recession and things start to improve, will we have these Malaysians, and we heard stories of people with university degrees trying out the wet market scene, leaving the wet markets? Then what happens? What is the plan in terms of is there a long-term and sustainable plan for wet markets in terms of who works there?
I think this is a question better suited for the Minister of Human Resources because if the job market does pick up tremendously in the years ahead, definitely the pool of talent that will be available to wet markets will shrink. So as the time goes by, the Minister of Human Resources and the Minister of Home Affairs need to make decisions on whether to issue permits to foreigners to work in markets to replace the shortfall if the shortfall comes in. But for the time being, I think this may not be a very big problem if the locals are willing to work, because 2,000 ringgit a month in the wet market would exceed a lot of wages that locals could get at factories or working as restaurant help in say, KFC or McDonald's. So the work is hard, but your salary would still be higher than a lot of existing jobs that Malaysians do work at today. Right. So the university graduates will definitely move on at some point, but a lot of others other Malaysians can fill the gap.
But I want to talk a little bit about the perception.
Yeah.
I came across this article, Rajiv. It may not be representative, but this article told the story of an unemployed university graduate who was shamed on social media for taking up what one person called, to quote this comment, a job fit only for migrants. I'm wondering whether you see this attitude as a barrier to taking up jobs like this in the wet market, even if it is a short-term measure.
I think it is a barrier. I think it will be very difficult for a lot of executives to make a step towards working in the market, even for a short term, even for 5 months, 6 months. But while many people are not willing to bite the bullet and do it, for those few who are willing to bite the bullet and do it, then there are employment opportunities that have cropped up in this MCO period. You know, there are not many new employment opportunities out there. And these market traders are forced to make the switch drastically, suddenly. And as an ADUN in EJ, I decided to help them to step up to try to attract and create awareness among locals that there are job opportunities, there is a gap that needs to be filled. And so for the few that are willing to do it, the opportunity is there for them. And for the rest who feel the stigma is too much, I don't hold any hard feelings towards them. They can always go and try some other business venture or any other industry. That's very within their right. It's a pity that people shame those who do choose this honest way of living, and I think we as Malaysians should not do that. And we should not look down at these jobs as demeaning. I think anyone who puts in an honest day of labor should be respected.
Rajiv, what if you don't get enough locals wanting to do these jobs? Will vendors, hard pressed because they can't allow foreign workers to work for them, will they just end up folding as a business? Are they between a hard place and a rock?
They are between the rock and the hard place. I got you there. But I will expect that certain traders, especially those who are already nearing retirement age or those who have already been contemplating retirement in the last few years, they may take this as the final nail on the coffin and decide that I'm done. It's too much hassle to continue, and they will call it quits. So yes, I do expect some traders to call it quits because of this policy. It's a pity, but if they're calling it quits voluntarily, maybe they should have enough savings. The hardest hit ones are those who are suddenly disrupted, suddenly left scrambling to find locals to fill the gap, and these people are in a harder place because they can't afford to quit, and they can't afford to stop business, and they just need to keep scrambling. And what is challenging for them is that every 3 days they may hire a new person because after 3 days people quit. They just can't take it. They can't take waking up so early in the morning. They can't take heavy physical work, and they quit. And so the traders, the job does not end hiring one person. They may need to hire 10 people before finding a person who can settle in and actually work for at least half a year to come.
Well, Rajiv, thank you. We really appreciate you spending some time with us tonight and telling us the situation on the ground. We appreciate your time and your insights. We're going to take a quick break and more on wet markets and small businesses in the state of Selangor in just a few minutes. Stay tuned.
Novel coronavirus yang seolah-olah masih tiada vaksin.
Elakkan pergi ke epicenter
Kalau boleh lah.
Kes-kes ni dapat dikesan dan dikuarantin di hospital ataupun di rumah.
Terdapat 86 rakyat Malaysia di Wuhan.
Sosial ekonomi Bumi Putera ini tidak boleh dipisahkan, tidak boleh dikurangkan ataupun ditinggalkan.
Pasal apa syarikat tu rugi? Kira sukses. The success is not necessary pada saya. Kalau kita nak menolong sesuatu.
Isra, apa benda Rancak TV ni?
Rancak TV ni adalah sebuah channel digital yang bernaung di bawah Astro AWANI.
Apa yang best sangat dengan Rancak TV ni?
Of course best, sebab dia ada macam-macam cerita. Dia ada cerita pasal isu-isu semasa, cerita pasal kesenian, cerita pasal hiburan, cerita pasal kecergasan, cerita pasal sukan, cerita pasal travel, cerita pasal sejarah, fakta-fakta menarik. dan mereka juga ada buat short film dan juga dokumentari. Dan yang paling penting, kita
Thank you for staying with Sharaad and I on Consider This. Let's continue our conversation about wet markets and small businesses in Selangor. So Selangor recently passed legislation prohibiting foreigners from owning business licenses, running temporary businesses or being employed by such businesses. Now the ban also applies to foreign spouses of Malaysian women and men. Joining us now on the line, we have Rodziah Ismail, a member of the Selangor Exco. She holds 2 portfolios, entrepreneur development and rural village and traditional village development. Rodziah, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. In reference to the legislation, what was the rationale behind the changes that were made? I mean, what problem was it that the Selangor state government was trying to address with this new legislation?
Actually, there are loopholes, as you said, in previous bylaws in local councils. See, as a chairperson for the Selangor hawkers and small traders, I did engage with a lot of hawkers representatives a few years back, and then I feel that there are a lot of things that I come up to hear from the comments or complaints or suggestions. And one of the big things that they come out with is the difficulties to get license, right? But yet there are a lot of foreigners still doing business out there. So after, I think prior to COVID-19, since January 2019, we have rolled out several initiatives in creating a new environment for the micro entrepreneurs. This was to elevate the economy status in the society. So, but now when we pass the pandemic, I think high time. In June 2020, Selangor State Government has passed the bylaws, and then actually it's to make sure the Selangor Government amend current Hawkers Bylaws 27 to prohibit the non-citizen foreigners and illegal immigrants to apply and own a hawker to petty traders license. Therefore, amendment reflects government stance and commitment to ensure only Selangor and Malaysian citizens are allowed to apply.
Okay, Rodziah, could you explain or tell us how many licenses will be freed up with this ban? I mean, exactly how many foreigners hold licenses at this point in time?
Okay, let me explain like this. We have about 89,500 licenses has been giving out to all the hawkers and traders throughout 12 local councils in Selangor. But yet we feel that when we roll out the 500 ringgit pandemic assistance to all the hawkers, we found out only not more than 30% come out and get the assistance. So from there on, what I did is we do some assessment and observation, and then we found out that at the end of the day, from the 89,000 license given, by right, half of it is, I can say it's Alibaba. It means somebody's name, other's name they are using, so they're given to other person to doing business. So this is a big thing that we need to amend to make it properly, to make sure that only the person that needs the hawker station or place to sell something, they will get the license. Can
I get you to clarify what you mean when you say most of it's Alibaba? Are you saying that these are locals holding the licenses, but they then use the kind of pajak system, the sublet system to foreign workers? Is that right?
Yeah, this is what I'm trying to say, that when we really go deeper, when we check what about why there are no many come forward to get the assistance from these COVID issues and everything, then we found out that two issues occur. First, we found that Alibaba, it means they have the license, but they are not doing the business, but they are given to somebody else. Or some of that, a lot of hawkers think that once they got the license, it means it is theirs forever, you know. So I think some of them inherit the license for generations, 2 or 3 generations. So this is what that we need to actually to reform and do some amendments to make sure that only the operators given the license.
Rodziah, there's no expiry date for these licenses. These licenses are in perpetuity?
Yes, I would say that yes. Before amendment, there are no expiry dates. So that's why a lot of amendments regarding this license was not only for foreign workers, but now we have the expiry date. Let's say that if you are not, if you hold a nominee's license, means that somebody maybe is not in a good condition or sakit or go to Haji, you know. So they give the license for 3 months only. But most time they do expiry date. It means you can give the license to the nominees, you know. So this time around, our policies is to make sure only the nominee for 3 months. The license may. No, I think recently we just did propose for only maximum 10 years. For them to hold the license.
Yeah, Rodziah, can I ask you a very kind of maybe obvious question, but what is wrong with having foreigners in the hawkers sector of the economy? After all, we have foreign investors coming in with big factories. What's the real problem with foreigners?
Actually, it's not the foreigners itself. This is actually hawkers and the small traders is the person that most of them is B40 or M20 and below, you know. So what we want, what the opportunity actually is given to the hawkers or to the citizens, it's not to the foreigners. So foreigners actually is given the opportunity to being in the other sectors, not as a businessman in the hawkers or what. So actually, as a citizen, sometimes they don't have the opportunity to get in business or they're having a problem. So this is the place when we given the chance to have some income with doing a business, with small business, and that's why we don't allow foreign to be in this business.
Okay, all right. So you are clarifying that it is only applicable to hawkers and petty traders. So does the government of Selangor want to phase out foreign workers in any other sectors?
So for Thailand, no. So we allow for restaurants, we allow for others, but not for hawkers or small traders.
Okay. All right. And can I also ask why this applies to the foreign spouses of Malaysians? Because it was quite specific in the legislation to mention that the spouses, the foreign spouses, are also not cannot apply for these licenses. Why is that?
We need to do because some survey and some findings we found out that is a lot of discrimination and. You know, so we don't allow this. Actually, this is a future to prevent it to be happen more and more. Actually, okay. So why? Because we don't want some cases. It's not all. Some cases, the marriage is only the marriage happens because they want the opportunity. It's not really the marriage between a Malaysian and other citizens.
Okay, Rodziah, that's all the time we have for tonight, and I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show and for speaking with us this evening. That's all we have for this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching, folks. Good night.